And play the intro and we can get started.
Let's go. I can hear that. Yeah. You can't hear anything.
Welcome to the Post-Show Podcast with your hosts, Paul Richards, Tess Protesto, and Michael Luttermoser. Let's talk shop.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the PTZOptics podcast.
Happy Friday, everybody.
We're super happy to have you all. We just finished a fun live stream where we were... What were we doing, guys?
We were instant replaying.
Ping pong.
Oh, ping pong.
We were doing ping pong. It was so much fun. We set up a high bit rate, high frame rate live stream. And why the heck would we do that?
High action. Just adding to the highs. Well, you know, we obviously sell live streaming cameras, robotic cameras, perfect for sports. A lot of our sports customers are looking for instant replay systems, whether it's from the secondary education level to higher education and beyond. So we found a great solution, of course, with our friends at X-Keys to make this possible. And today we are covering how we made it happen, optimizing the cameras for using these type of tools, and having fun as always.
As always, we're having fun. Can you just move the Z-Cam over here, Mike, so we can see you? Because we don't have anyone in this chair today. So what we're doing here is we're doing high bitrate streaming. And bitrate is essentially the compression that's used on our encoding software. So all of our cameras that we were using were 3G SDI cameras, SDI connections to the computer. That's uncompressed video. In order to get that video where it needs to go, YouTube's servers, Facebook servers, Twitch's servers, Easy Live servers, LinkedIn servers, Periscope servers, it's impossible to get all that raw data everywhere, so compression is necessary. Compression is what makes this world tick nowadays. You can't stream music on Spotify without compression. You can't watch Netflix without compression. You can't look at Facebook without some sort of compression.
Crazy.
You can't send certain files without compression. You gotta compress files down.
I mean, Mike, as a video producer, I even had to ask him to stop using the MOV files and start using MP4 because the quality is so good. The compression algorithms are so good that why wouldn't you use it, because it's still so great. But what we did today was high frame rate. So instead of 30 frames per second, which is normal, we did 60 frames per second, and Tess immediately says,
soap operas.
It looks like a soap
General
opera.
Hospital represent.
It really does. And soap operas do that on purpose, you know? And sports broadcasters do that on purpose. Now, in sports, they like to be able to see that hockey puck fly across the ring.
Right. What's the point with soap operas? Just to let you know that it's a soap opera?
Yeah, just to
theme?
make it that much different. Yeah. Because people get kind of weirdly addicted to soap operas. I don't understand it.
Yeah, I don't get it either.
But it's different than normal TV, and they needed something to stand out. That's my take on it. I mean,
it's just purely just.
I mean, we can't assume that they're doing it by mistake, right? I mean, they're obviously doing it on purpose.
And it's every single one.
Yeah, and you can tell. Now, so frame rate at the 60 frames per second for sports, which is what we were doing, a live ping pong tournament. When you have 60 frames per second and you do instant replay and you show it in 50% speed, which looks really cool when you're hitting a ping pong ball and it's flying across, the table, you still have 30 frames to use at 50%, 30 frames per second. So the more frames you have, like if we had 120 frames per second, we could go down to 25% and still have 30 frames to deal with, that's like the ultimate. The PTZOptics camera is currently maxed out at 60, but 60 is still really good at 1080p. And it's very doable for live video production. And we have a custom-built Windows 10 computer with 8 SDI camera inputs. Shout out to Tom at Eastern Shore Broadcast for building that for us. And it can easily handle all of those cameras at 60 frames per second. Now, keep in mind, 1080p at 30 frames per second is one thing. 1080p at 60 is double. Twice as many frames, twice as much data, twice as much everything. So if you're trying to do a high quality 60 frame per second video, when you compress it and stream it via RTMP, which uses an H.264 encoding protocol. When you compress that, you got to use a higher bitrate compression or you're going to lose everything that you're trying to do. All right? A bitrate, just to put this in perspective for our podcast listeners, we talked about this a little bit on the stream today. A resolution is like a canvas. Think of it as a piece of art, a rectangle piece of art, 1920 by 1080. Let's just think about it as 1920 inches by 1080 inches. Think about the bitrate as the amount of paint that you put in there. It is what makes it. So if you have a 1920 by 1080 stream at like 1 megabit, it's going to look like crap. All the details are going to look pixelated.
I thought like it was the amount of
frame.
pixels that you have within.
But so the pixels, when you start compressing them, like imagine this. You've got a big old picture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you compress it. You're not necessarily making the pixels smaller. You're just compressing the data in the pixels. So the pixels are actually, have less information in them.
That's loud.
So that, if that makes sense. So the bitrate is the amount of information inside of the canvas that makes it higher quality.
Inside each pixel?
Inside every pixel.
Okay.
So then you take that thinking where we're like, all right, well, we're doing 60 frames per second. We've got a lot of stuff going on. We want a really high quality bitrate stream to YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
What about Facebook? What about Twitch? What about
Hey,
all
we're
these
cutting
other places?
Michael off for the viewers.
Let's put him in here. And what happens is that you end up having a couple issues. One is our computer probably, even though it's a badass beast of a computer, it probably can't handle streaming a high bitrate stream to YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, LinkedIn, all the places that we're streaming right now, Periscope, at the same time. It would be a lot of processing power, and it would require a lot of upload speed. And upload speed is one thing we don't have very much of here because we have Comcast, and Comcast is a monopoly that gives you nothing for your money.
Conspiracy theorist over here.
100 megabits down, only 20 megabits up.
Put
And
your
I've
hands in
only
the
been
air.
able to use about 10 of those ups without seeing a significant loss in quality.
Yeah, and I'm having some internet issues right now, actually.
Probably because we're streaming so much.
Yeah, because I'm not able to see, anything. I was fine in there, but now that I'm up here, it's
That's
having
weird. We might have to talk
issues.
to our IT guy about that.
Yeah.
But what happens is since we have a limited amount of upload speeds, the only way to maintain that high bitrate stream, which we can't, like if we lived with like in a town that had Google Fiber, it actually probably would be fine.
Yeah.
Now we might not have the processing power to create 6 high bitrate, 6 megabit per second streams. We're streaming in 6 megabits per second now, which Akamai is the world's largest content delivery network, private content delivery network, says that 6 megabits per second is an excellent stream. When you're watching the Phillies or the World Series, the All-Star game was in Cleveland a couple of days ago, Major League Baseball All-Star game, on a high-definition television at a bar, you're seeing a really high bitrate stream. You never see pixelation. You know what I mean? So they did some tests. They said 6 megabits per second, whether you're on a smartphone, an iPad, or a television, is enough to say, wow, this looks excellent. So we're streaming that, and we're just a small business with kind of a crappy internet connection, right? To the cloud, and then the cloud, in this case, we're using Go Easy Live. I know there are other services like Restream.io, can ingest that stream and then restream it out in the cloud where unlimited bandwidth is capable. So they have these like, have you ever heard of like a server farm?
Mm-hmm.
They have these like server farms. I've never actually seen one, but I know that there are like bajillions of them in this country, especially in California, like right outside Microsoft, any big tech company. They just have, and you've seen them in television where it's just like, you just see like server racks for like miles.
It's like a darkened basement warehouse.
And you see like a hacker walk in, and
It's cold
computer.
too. They keep it really cold.
Keep it really cold.
Oh,
They
yeah.
use a lot of
They
energy.
use a lot of heat and energy.
But they basically have the biggest infrastructure and pipelines to data in the world. So you stream to there, you have to pay big bucks. It's like $100 a month or more for this data and the streaming and everything. But from there, now you can stream to everywhere. It's a kind of crazy world that we live in to think about, because what we're doing right now is we're broadcasting to Facebook as if it was its own television station.
Yeah.
YouTube as if it was its own television station. Twitter.
LinkedIn.
Twitch, all of these places. We're
I can't even
treating
remember
them all,
anymore.
5 of them. We're treating them all as if they're their own television stations.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that, and it is very powerful, all these social media networks, all these followers, subscribers, people that are being notified. The only thing we're not doing, but we will be doing next week, is broadcasting on the radio. But the problem with radio, and I love radio, and we're going to be broadcasting on AM radio next week on Thursday. And I want to talk a little bit about that. 92% of adults in America listen to the radio regularly, which is more than people that use social media. Okay, so it's a lot of people, wide reaching. But there's no video, right? You can't live stream a ping pong match. What are you going to do? Listen to the pong? You could listen to the commentators, and people do that.
You can't
right?
radio broadcast.
People do that.
Of
What
course.
people did back in the day,
That's what they did.
in the 30s.
Yeah, people
Yeah,
would.
the
People
20s.
would, listen.
There's
they
still
would
radio announcers, of course.
sit around the
Yeah.
radio and listen to the sports. And
People would tell stories on the radio, you know.
Yeah, that's how.
The Shadow? It's from the 30s.
well, and they still
Um,
do. Obviously, these radio broadcasters never stop.
War
man.
of the Worlds.
Yeah.
They
Yes,
never went
that's
out
the
of
famous
business
one.
or anything.
That's-
They're all still out there. What they're not doing is they're not jumping on social media and streaming as
Mhm.
much. Some of them are.
Yeah.
But the thing that you can't, and on the flip side of that, so you can't stream a baseball game on radio, but on the flip side, you can't watch a basketball game while you're driving down the highway, but you can listen to the radio.
Mhm.
Yeah, so there's certainly a need.
Yes. Now we veered off topic. That's radio. That we'll be doing next Thursday, AM radio. If they let us, we'll buy the whole radio station and just take it over. No, I'm sure they want to keep their radio station. But
We're officially uninvited.
yeah. No, but it is interesting to think about. Like there are radio stations that straight up could take this feed of this podcast right now from Facebook or whatever, pump it into their radio station, and boom.
Yeah.
The audio version of what we're doing right now would be on the radio.
That's the
It's
idea.
more of like access to the tech and the towers.
Yeah. So how would this work? Would they pay? All right, if they wanted to use our content, would they pay us to use our show,
Ideally,
or
yeah.
we would pay them?
At this point, we would have to pay them because it's like, oh, well, we have listeners in this. Now,
Right.
and AM and FM radio is very much local.
Yes.
You know, the world is trending toward local content. It's like we don't trust CNN anymore, or Fox News, blah blah blah. But people, the polls say they trust like local news because there's people that are talking about things that they are relevant to them. And then when they touch on national topics, they go, well, these people understand us. They have the same, I don't want to say slang, but accent even. You know, it just makes sense. You know, an English person likes the English radio.
Yeah.
Person from the South likes the person from the South. I was just in Cleveland, and I was listening to the radio, and I was like, wow, this is very different than the things I hear in Philadelphia. And I was like, you like AM radio, huh? And he was like, I love AM radio. I like these guys. I like the way they talk. They cover all the local things in my town. And they love local radio. But the interesting thing about local radio and radio in general is that it has a certain radius, and it doesn't go beyond that. And Julia, one of our new hires here, was a broadcaster on the radio for a long time, was telling me that the radio station here that we're going to be broadcasting on maybe has like a 50-mile range, but in Buffalo, there's somebody using that same range, and it bleeds in from time to time as you leave the range of the Westchester
That's
station.
crazy.
Yeah. That's cool.
So
That's really interesting.
it's interesting because like on the Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, that's like global. You just need an internet connection and you're done.
Yeah.
So it will probably take over. I still think that radio, from the numbers that I was looking at, is apparently reaching more people than all these social media networks. Now, when you combine YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and all these, they have to be bigger than radio.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
But it's interesting to think now podcasts have given radio new life. There's people who just want a podcast who don't have access to radio towers. There's people who want a podcast like Joe Rogan who stream on YouTube at the same time
Exactly.
and don't even care about the radio because they have loyal followers on their podcast, and they're like, I don't need to buy a radio station. I don't need their approval. I don't need to pay them. They need to pay me. I like where you're going with that because they should, if your content's good enough, they should pay you.
Yeah.
Radio stations, if they're going to survive, need to pay the most, you know. The issue, I think, what's happening is that people, the most talented people, you know, the Trey Parkers of the world that you were showing me, and just talented comedians and actors and activists, all these people, they want to get paid money. And the radio stations aren't selling enough advertising. They're not getting enough eyeballs. All the advertising dollars. If you follow the advertising dollars, now we're going way off topic, but if you follow the advertising dollars, that's where the attention is. And who's got all the advertising dollars? Google and Facebook.
Drop the bomb.
So there you go. Now they've got attention in a special way. Facebook, you can click and you can scroll through something, click it, and buy it in 2 seconds. You can't do that with radio. That's why radio is slowly dying. Yeah. It's not that the content's not bad. It's not that there's not listeners. It's just not interactive in the way that social media is.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, it's not that the content's not bad. It's pretty bad.
But the content's not bad. I mean, I don't know.
That's
what
you missed. You said it like that, so I was just making fun of you.
Okay, because the content I'm sure is good, and
I love my
radio
Preston
stations need
Steve.
to do, and we're going to be talking about radio stations next week, so I shouldn't be blammering and yammering about radio stations.
Yeah, we got.
off
It's on
You gotta
his
save that
mind.
content.
It's on his
That's
mind.
coming next week, folks.
Yeah.
But the thing I'll leave you with radio is this: radio stations have a huge opportunity to move to social media, capitalize. They have shows. Yeah. They have
infrastructure.
Yeah. They have talent. They have
all
people
there.
who come in every day and produce a show. If they're not streaming it to YouTube and Facebook,
all you gotta do is
what
throw
are they
that
thinking?
HD camera in. That's all you gotta do.
So that's what we're gonna be doing next week. But back to our topic today. We got a very pleasant surprise that we were able to live stream on LinkedIn.
Yay.
Tess and I already gave each other like a million high fives.
I know, so happy.
We've been like banging our heads against the wall of like how it works. We gotta tell Felipe from Go Easy Live that it works.
Yes, and we realized the only way it's working right now is invite only, and you need to be able to collaborate with the content. Okay, an outside streaming source.
Yeah, so they're not just giving out RTMP streams the way that YouTube and Facebook do, which allow it to work with any streaming system. You must use something like Restream.io.
Can't go just shake the tree. RTMPs fall down.
RTMPs are not falling down this tree. But yeah, so that was a pleasant surprise. It's a Friday. I'm like, yeah, feeling good.
I know, and it was exciting for us, and so immediately the tension was a little it's like high risk. It's like, all right, let's show up here.
We weren't even ready at all.
No, we weren't.
So I was like, Mike, can you put a camera on me? I already got a microphone. Let's go.
I think it worked out though. You let us know on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we did.
I was watching on LinkedIn.
We're still streaming on LinkedIn.
Yes, we are. We're still here.
Watching,
First time ever.
Enjoy.
I'm sorry if you're chatting. It's not working.
Yeah, with this. I will say we're getting a little out of control with the amount of content delivery networks that we're using.
It's almost like these systems need to catch up to us and what we want to do, which is to go to more than 3 content delivery systems. We want to do like 5, you know?
Well, we're doing 5.
I know, but I mean, doing 5 with that high quality, you know, all the way through, no buffering, no nothing.
Got a comment.
Yeah.
Dan from X Keys and PI Engineering says, sorry I'm late. Mike, did you know that Streaming Idiots is sponsoring an instant replay training course?
Oh, nice.
That's interesting.
That's cool.
You should probably take that.
Yeah, definitely.
It would definitely be helpful because I feel like we're doing a lot more instant replay.
Yeah.
It's fun. Also, though, to rewind back for this whole podcast, if you've been listening to this, thank you for spending your time. I hope you get something out of it. It's highly technical. And I'm like, wow, first time on LinkedIn Live. Here's how all this technical bit rate and the frame rate and camera capture and encoding and streaming and cloud-based restreaming works. And I'm like, if you're new to LinkedIn, it's like LinkedIn, we have to remember, is a totally different platform. And these are like business professionals who are like maybe wanting to dip their toes in streaming. I mean, absolutely. We're coming at them with like, and you need 8 cameras and you know.
I know.
Now we're going to slow down the instant replay.
You know, we did a pretty good job. I don't know if you noticed, like we kind of just took our time a little bit. How you guys like did set up, not the setup, but like just the show itself. Mm-hmm. And I was able to just like just that extra kind of minute when you guys are just talking and get everything set up and then to go and to get those replays.
Yeah, the instant replay shows are particularly difficult as a producer.
They really are.
At one point, it was the workflow was a little off. I had my hand on the mouse, my right hand on the mouse, and then I was going over with the left hand and like going like this.
Oh my gosh.
Tangled up here, but we made it work.
You crushed it.
Yeah, you did great. I mean, if we had more time, which we always try to do like a bunch of work in the morning and then a little work for show prep. One of the things I would have recommended that could have been make it easier is that like you can have like your keyboard can be hotkeys.
Yeah,
so if you would have had like just 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yes.
You know, for the different shots.
To show the different shots, that would have been pretty clutch.
Now, like a couple of those, just like a line of buttons.
Yeah.
And then you could just.
I was like it wasn't intuitive enough to figure out like once we figured out where to click on the software, I was able to like bounce around a little bit on that.
I think that instant replay jog dial item does a lot of that on the X keys thing where so you like, but the import that we did not work of the shortcuts and we never fully set it up properly.
It's classic our classic show setup is we never have enough time.
Get it? Far enough along that like the viewers won't know that we've only got this halfway.
We literally need 2 days for some of these shows.
They're pretty advanced.
We get it done in like a couple hours.
9 cameras. If you include the podcast, it's 11.
Yeah.
So 11 video sources.
And then audio sources as well.
10 audio sources.
NDI inputs.
We had NDI inputs. Tess is doing graphics. We had Brian doing a play-by-play microphone. We had a scoreboard bug that was coming in over NDI.
Virtual camera inputs.
Tons of virtual camera inputs.
I think that is
graphical layouts.
The camera inputs gets tough.
The camera inputs are tough. That's why if you would have had those on like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
And you could have quickly flipped through them because it's tough.
It gets you definitely get lost in the sauce.
And you know what I have to say is that real broadcasters like.
Oh yeah.
And not that we're not real broadcasters, but like television broadcasters, they don't play around with the keyboard and mouse.
No.
Now, to be honest, I think we can do a lot more than they can.
Mm-hmm.
To be completely honest, I really do.
Yeah.
I believe that our workflow is super dynamic. Like our shows that we save, I mean, there's 3 of us all doing this like really, really part-time in our full day of a week.
Yeah.
You know, like a couple hours is our setup. And I know we're going way off topic, but like, for example, like we have these squares that are PNG images that Tess creates, and we've got it down to the point where Tess just like literally replaces them each week, and they're already loaded. They
automatically populate.
That's nice. That's like really
so
nice.
We've got this workflow down, and we're getting better at it all the time. But anyway, going back to the broadcasters, they literally have like these rows of buttons.
Mm-hmm.
And they push that button and it does exactly what they think it's going to do.
Yeah.
There's no keyboard and mouse.
Yeah.
You know, there's no clicking into the multi-view and creating virtual inputs and all of that.
It's crazy.
You either have raw video inputs or you have what they call mixed effects, which is like anything that's not a raw input. And then they've got a different guy who's doing graphics and a different person that's queuing up this and another person that's interviewing the guests and screening them and then they've got
12,
the talent.
12-person job.
They've got 2 teleprompter, operators, and
it's only 3.5 of us.
Have you ever like seen a movie where or a show where they're in the television studio and the executive producer's like, this is like, this news is coming in hot. like this news is like breaking news.
Yes.
Like put it into the teleprompter, and then it goes even further where the news broadcaster's looking at the teleprompter and he's like, what do they want me to say? And he starts reading it, and then they're like, he's going off script. He's not reading the teleprompter. What is he saying? No!
Yeah.
Like, he just said that on national air. We're all going to lose our jobs.
Who was it that had the Kardashian freak out? I think it was Mike Jarek.
Really?
Or Jarek. I forget how to pronounce his last name. Like, where that happens to multiple. I feel like the Kardashian thing has happened to multiple broadcasters.
Yeah, it does.
Like,
it really does.
Meaning meaning a topic like the Kardashians, where people are sick of hearing it comes up, and then they just lose their SHIT.
Yeah.
Now, how many broadcasts can we get away with playing ping pong before?
This is probably the only one. Matter of fact, there might be something in your inbox deterring us against it.
Really? Already?
No, I'm kidding.
Oh.
There's not, at least not in mine. But
because ping pong's a big deal for me. I love ping pong, and I was like, this is a great way to show this topic. It's the middle of the summer. Maybe I'm running out of ideas. But I also want to do foosball.
Yeah.
There's huge foosball tournaments in Europe and around the world.
Now you want to do foosball.
I do. I want to do foosball.
And you have one at home?
We do.
Oh, we're going to have to go there.
So we'll get to that on our next show, folks. Thank you so much for listening.
Yes,
That's
thank you.
our podcast. Have a good weekend. We go live Fridays at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. So don't forget to tune in. Take care, everybody. Tess, can you stop the stream on Go Easy Live? Phew. It was a little stressful though, wasn't it? Even though it went pretty smooth, it was just like the whole time.
I think after we got the first or second one working, I was then like, okay. I was at.
No, you started getting into your groove.
Yeah, definitely.
We didn't have enough time to do it beforehand.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so this is